All right, so we're back with iRacing in 4K with the RTX 5090 i9 14900 processor. I hope this video is going to help a lot of people. Seems like the previous ones are kind of helping people, find a balance of what's going to work for them. The Samsung G9 57-inch is an interesting monitor. So it's capable of doing 4K 240 hertz, and it's essentially two 4K monitors. It's an 8K width and resolution, 4K height and resolution. So essentially, like I said, two 4K monitors. Now, iRacing clearly has a bottleneck versus what I've been testing, such as Le Mans Ultimate, Assetto Corsa Evo, what else? Automobilista 2. I mean, I've been doing a bunch of testing and they're getting really good frame rates, max graphic settings, but with iRacing, it's a struggle. And I've done a ton of testing, listened to people in the comments, saying, try this, try that. And I have done a ton. And so I'm going to share what I think, at least for now, is the best 4K settings for iRacing, at least using an RTX 5090 with an i9 14900 processor, and maybe this resolution specifically to the Samsung G9 57-inch. So I'm going to reset that just so I don't start getting any talking right in the middle. I think I have Crew Chief on, and you know what? I'm going to go ahead and close Crew Chief because that's just going to be loud and unnecessary while we're out here doing some things. So let's go ahead and go to options, go to graphics, and go over these really quick with you guys. So things that I've noticed. Let's go from the top. Enable boost and SPS, they do absolutely nothing. I've tested it many times. Zero frame rate change. Sky, clouds, and cars. I want cars at high detail no matter what, but sky, if anything, a frame per second. I'm noticing no difference at all. Take it for what it is. That's what I'm getting. Pit objects, I am noticing a few frames. Like it could be upwards of like 3 to 4. I think that's worth it. And I'm not seeing much different from the pit objects. And I think this test will be great because I showed it previously where I was getting about 75 to 79 frames per second. CPU was in the orange at the start, and I'm going to be able to show you what I'm getting today based on this setting change, and you can see what I was running before. But yeah, pit objects doesn't do much. Event high, grandstands and crowds, why wouldn't you run them low? I'm seeing no difference at all in the grandstands, and it's the difference in the people is like the behind, the backside of them. Not seeing any difference there. I will tell you that objects I have on high just for, picking things out for breaking points, things like that. But foliage, the grass looks bad in my opinion anyway, and it's like patchy, and it does affect probably 4 to 5. So leaving it off is honestly fine with me. I almost find it distracting. I mean, it's that bad the way the patching is. Now, max draw for cars, in this race in particularly, I don't think you're going to notice a difference. At least I tested it 64 to 40 and didn't see anything, but I think it's because there's not more than 40 vehicles. So cars would probably make a difference. If you have a full massive field, you might want to turn that down. You could get a little more. Dynamic LOD is an interesting one. I had people say, well, you're using dynamic LOD. It can make adjustments while you're out there. And I appreciate them mentioning that. But here's the deal. I've turned it all the way up. All right, to where anything below 180 should reduce things. It made no difference. It absolutely made no difference. I mean, I was kind of, surprised myself, but I have it off anyway. And we're actually going to do no limit on frame rate. So let's just go ahead and do no limit on that. Even if actually, you know what, we could limit. It's not going to hit 180 or something anyway, but that's probably where I wouldn't want it going above necessarily because you'd get too much of a range. Anti-aliasing is an interesting one. I had some people point out that try turning it off because you're in 4K. You don't need anti-aliasing, but believe it or not, it's noticeable in my opinion, especially on like the black line through your windscreen, the line on the hood. There are jagged edges. And if you go to 2, they're very small. You go to 4, the difference between 2 and 4 is very small, 1 to 2 frames a second. I just feel like, why wouldn't you just run it on 4? Because it's going to look better. And I'm not seeing the difference between 4 and off. Might be 4 to 5 FPS, maybe, but it's not like you're getting a 15 gain or something like that. Shadow maps is the same thing. If you turn these off, I'm not seeing a difference, but the object self-shadowing and the dynamic objects, you will get a reduction. So I'm running it with it on because you can see the shadows, which in my opinion is more immersive. Lights on 3, PCF filter really does nothing, turning it all the way down. Shader quality, it's another one where you can put it on ultra versus high. I'm not really seeing much of an FPS difference. I just figured leave it on high. If there's a little bit of a gain there, I'm not seeing a quality difference either, so why not? Trees, I've tried them on and off. It's supposed to be more CPU bound, and I'm not seeing a difference. In FPS quality, I actually do. So you can see blobs in the background on the trees versus just having them on 2-pass and high quality. So might be a personal preference thing if you think you can gain 1 or 2 FPS, but I'm not seeing enough. This was a killer. Cockpit mirrors. And I'm actually going to reset this so it doesn't go off, just because it's kind of annoying hearing things. But cockpit mirrors, especially in like the Mustang GT3, which we're in with the digital mirror, it's a killer. And honestly, you don't need it, especially with the other virtual mirror. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. The higher detail is an interesting one, though, because it must be the 4K. I don't notice a difference between higher detail and not having higher detail. So the cars look good. I mean, everything looks solid. So leave that off and have one mirror, which is all I really use anyway. I can't see the other mirror on the Samsung 57-inch. So it's perfect. And I gained big FPS. I mean, it might be 15 plus going to 1 and lowering the higher detail. So that was a nice one. Headlights, I didn't see a big difference, and I just left that on. The virtual mirror was another one where I gained a decent amount. So I run the virtual mirror. If you go into the DX11 monitor settings and edit that in Notepad, you can actually select 0 for your mirror size, which is large. You can't do that unless you edit inside that file. And I like the large setting. The difference is if you run it like 90 to 120, I'm seeing a pretty decent frame loss. It could be 5 or 6 on average, but 70 is still wide enough to where I can see the car that's staged behind me. And with the spotter and everything, why run more than 70 if you're gonna, gain FPS? So that's one I put down. Sharpening, even in 4K, I think sharpening makes a big difference in quality. And HDR, I'm not seeing a gain or loss in frame rate. Not really seeing quality either, but I'm leaving it on. The last one is very interesting. This video mem swap. So on an RTX 5090, you have 32 gigabytes of VRAM. I think iRacing allows for like a max of like 12 maybe or 16, but regardless, this is taking frame rate away. So if you read, it says for systems with limited video memory, this is a recommended option where it takes the 3 closest cars and it renders them differently, and it swaps the high-res version into video memory as required. Well, I know one thing, it might be the bottleneck. Turn that off. You do not want that on. So something to point out. And I think that we're ready to show it in action. So let's reset it. Put some gloves on just because I'm used to having them on. We'll go to the grid, and I want you guys to pay attention right away. The 74 to 79 we were getting before. Guess I got to hit the button, huh? And now we're getting 100. Picked up 20 to 25 FPS just from those settings. And in my opinion, you're on a full grid right now. Let's see what it looks like out on the track. I think one of the biggest differences sorry, I was turning my volume down in my headset, is that once you clean up the field a little bit, get single file, I think you're going to notice that it's very realistic. I had a little dip there, so 85 to 90 there for a second, but right back up. I just can't believe, there we go, now we're up to 110. See how I can see that guy? Really don't need much more mirror than that. And this looks good. Like the cars look sharp. And I guess everyone's gonna have personal preference. Some might say they can't go below 120, but I think around 100 like I am right now, and then watch when we clean it up a little bit, it's gonna shoot above 100. And I get up to 120. And then on some tracks, and depending on how many cars you have around you and everything else, you're gonna be at 120. So if you really like graphic quality and you can handle starting the race, anywhere from like 85 to 100 and then getting up to, 120, I think you're gonna find that these settings will work for you. And you could dial a few back if you want. I mean, heck, you could even turn off the anti-aliasing if you want to, but I'm just telling you right now, that black line right there, the hood, they have jagged edges, even in 4K. So that little corner there, no, but with less cars, look at it, was almost 100. I mean, I can live with this. I'm not happy. I mean, especially the other titles having so much more FPS, but I'm already at 120 now. Still don't know this track that well. I've only been on it a couple times, but we're just trying to stay in the group because this would be realistic for racing. And you could draw less cars, I guess, versus what we had, the 40-20. But I wouldn't want too much flashing or, you know, disappearing in front of me or behind me. So I found this is a pretty good balance. And you could turn down the clouds and the trees and everything if you wanted to, but I just don't think you're going to pick up as much as you think. It's going to be a couple FPS. So until this bottleneck of the 14900, I mean, I guess potentially you could overclock it because it's just limiting the core usage. And I've done it all. I've unparked cores, updated BIOS. I mean, you name it, I've done it. So whether it's this recent lighting update that's really made a difference, you know, in FPS, I just think that this is where you're at with 4K. 100 or so FPS, and in the rain, it's pretty bad. You have to turn it way down. And I just don't want to lose the car quality. I think that it's really weird when you have windshields turning black and flashing back on. It made a difference. You gained some FPS, and I guess if you guys want, I could do a test in like low, not lowest, but real low settings to get like bare minimum 120. But we've been at 100 to 120 this whole race now, and this would be what I consider what you'd be dealing with. This is a small track too. The majority of races, you know, with the field a little bit in front of you, a little bit behind you. Hey, maybe you only have the field behind you if you're a shooter. 124. I'm driving horribly, but I'm also looking up to the upper right the whole time. Oh, you know, I should mention one thing. I have OBS running. I noticed about 1 to 2 frames per second once I start recording with OBS. I had a couple people ask about that, and I agree there is a difference there. And it's about 1 to 2. So consider yourself, maybe the most I saw was 3. So you'd be adding a couple to that if you weren't recording in decent quality like I am. Whether you're using maybe a streaming computer or not recording at all. Need to short shift this car. I mean, this looks really solid to me now, quality-wise. I just like the sharpness. If I'm gonna be in iRacing, I like those shadows. That feels immersive. I like the sharpness. And maybe if I'm running something really competitive, I dial a couple more things back, and that way I just know for sure I'm getting that 120. But I don't know if I'm a serious enough racer where I could tell the difference. That's the thing. Might as well finish the race off here. What are we at? 13-minute video. Hey, I'm picking up speed on this track that I don't know. I feel like you can almost cut that corner completely there, and then you get a little, yeah, that's a better line. 110. You have to go wide here, and I have a tough time hitting both those apexes. Sets you up for that. And then that's probably the hardest corner of the track right here to nail. Getting better at it though. I could make a pass, but just trying to stay close to the cars and look at the performance. This way we keep cars in front of us and behind us, and it's a real test. You wanted to make a pass there. That was funny. 126, 130. Pretty consistent right now. And I honestly would prefer consistent FPS. I don't know about you guys, but I don't want an FPS going from 80 to 150. That is going to cause more issues than a low FPS in my opinion. So, I mean, the fact that I'm averaging anywhere from like you know, 100 to 120 right now is a pretty good range to where it's enough and it's also not too much of a gap. That's why a lot of people max their FPS, because you don't want big jumps. We're almost getting closer to an averaging 120. And right on this guy's bumper. I don't think I can outbrake him here. Just don't know that corner well enough.
The leader is running 12.013.
Oh, I've got him now. Here we go. Actually kind of figuring the track out a little bit.
Just stick your fastest left of the six. Car on your left. Clear on the left.
I feel like you stay in second there because otherwise you're spinning the tires. That helps. It's funny looking at the different FPS at different parts of the track and like it's the way it's changing. I wonder what all other than cars could be affecting, but kind of overdriving this car a little bit. Oh.
Clear on the right.
110. Pretty consistent now. Be interested to hear what everybody thinks about the graphic quality. I mean, obviously YouTube steps on the video. That guy's trying to pass me again. Well, I shouldn't have went so deep. Whoops. Thought I only picked a 10-minute race. Just see where this got an off track. See if I can get him back now. Ooh, he was like, no, sir. I feel like the AI models, the way it adapts and everything now, it's pretty decent. I have it on like, I don't know, it's somewhere around like 70 and there's like a range around 70 to 80 or something. So there's fast guys up front. Whoops.
Clear on the right.
Now I'm just kind of overdriving and messing it up. I don't have a lot of time in this car, but it's a fun car. Let the Porsche by though. Jim Farley would not be happy. 103, 105. And it's funny, I'm looking at my LEDs in the gaming PC because I have them set to where it shows the temperature. I have like blue, which is, you know, cool, like under 70, I want to say, and then Celsius, and then it gets green if it's anywhere from 70 to 100, and then turns red if it's above 100, and it's blue. It hasn't even moved off of blue.
Still there.
This is like kind of some fun racing here, other than my off tracks. Looking up in the FPS too much and overdriving the car a little bit. Oh, little tap. 0x or 2x, oof. It was only a matter of time. He's coming back too. Yeah, we've got damage. Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome. Now we've got aero damage. I was just bound and determined to get this guy. This is a fun track for being small. You know, you gotta get used to it. I mean, obviously, you know, the bigger tracks, you can let these cars go a little more off, you know, outright, but it's still fun. I'm really interested to hear what everybody has to say, though. I mean, I think this is consistent enough now where I'm not going to complain because I'm averaging close to 120. And a pretty demanding track with a bunch of things turned on. So let me know what you think.